This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, alongside my co-host Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations. And this is episode 1 in a 2-part series that will give you all the information you need to be ready for Prime Day. Yes, we're already talking Prime Day. For our first episode, we'll be digging into topics focused on operational, promotional, and organic tactics that you should be thinking about in the lead up to the big day. For that, we're joined by a couple of lovely experts from the Acadia team. We've got Joanna, Otto, an account manager for our retail team. And she has spent over a decade across brand side, agency, and even Amazon directly. And so we're excited to have her timeless perspective as it relates to all things Prime Day and what she's seen develop over the years. And we also have Vetnic, one of our lead strategists when it comes to tentpole tactics. He'll be sharing a lot of the data and best practices for merchandising strategy that we've seen across our client partners. So there's going to be a lot of juicy nuggets here. Have your pen and paper ready to take notes. Welcome to the podcast, Joanna and Predrag. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Feels good to be here.
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here. Love talking about Prime Day.
Julie, I liked how you built Joanna's experience as timeless rather than like a decade of trauma. Like you coming in with the right perspective for the shifting Prime Days over the year. So starting off the right.
We'll use like the editing to filter out any of the twitching.
Yeah, we have a twitch.
No, she's wizened now after a decade.
That's right. Grizzled, maybe even.
Well, we're recording this in April, which honestly is when preparation for Prime Day needs to begin. We know that Prime Day itself typically happens kind of that mid-July period, but it's one of those things that I think Amazon loves to just keep everyone guessing. Like, when's it going to be? Because they always hold it for just a few weeks ahead of the event. But while we wait on the official date, we all have kind of an over-under on what date we think it will be. Can you walk us through important dates to remember in the lead up to Prime Day for both vendors and sellers?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, it's the time to begin, and Amazon has even teased since March 18th, we've been able to submit deals, as you've probably seen. So we have until the 23rd for the big deal scheduling. However, the PEDs we have up until the event, thankfully. So there's we can begin even now getting started. But as we're looking ahead, we only have a couple month countdown. The big thing is to start to build velocity and get ratings and reviews on your products that we want to shine on Prime Day. So however that investment is from the ad side, but also from the organic side, programs like Product Win is a great way to get a campaign launched, get that started. Even in the first week of June, we'll get you a couple weeks into a campaign. You'll be in your peak Prime engagement, peak velocity. You'll have reviews already rolling in, and that increase in velocity is what's really going to enable and increase your SEO during this Prime Day event. And that will really get Amazon's algorithm to really favor your products. So something to get the ball rolling with is to focus on getting those reviews. And we know that there's programs like Vine for new products, but whatever you can do to expedite that, of course, along with organic SEO and copy keywords, competitive scraping will also be a major benefit. But this is where we really start to see big players invest in getting those reviews, the next month or so, starting those campaigns. And then, of course, we have our FBA inventory arrival deadline. So we have to have, it is vital to have your product. It's not promised if Amazon gives us a date and they say it's not promised if it's not arrived by then. So for the beginning of June 9th is for minimal shipment splits. And then we have another buffer, June 18th, for the Amazon optimized splits. So just be mindful that how you're sending in your inventory and making sure that we're reaching those dates so that everything you're sending is going to be included in the event and you're not going to deal with excess inventory when we're meant to sell through. And then, of course, AWD inventory, that one send in by May 15th, and that's for the guaranteed Prime badge readiness. So want to make sure, again, that's already a month out, having your AWD inventory sent in and then keeping a close eye in June to have your Prime inventory sent. So it's eligible for those deals that we're investing in.
Okay, so we peppered in some like key dates. There's a lot of info dropped in that very first one. So key dates, kind of just going in order. AWD inventory in by May 15th. Deal scheduling done by May 23rd. That opened up at the end of March. And then FBA arrival for minimal shipment splits June 9th. And then for June 18th, Amazon optimized splits, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot. And then also focusing in on any campaigns that you can run that help build sales velocity, build your review quantity, and hopefully quality based on what the feedback is from customers, and help kind of juice the algorithm from an organic SEO perspective.
Precisely. Yes. The SEO and organic should be started, right now as you're getting that inventory sent in. So we have just a couple months to get everything tip top.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of, every year there's a sort of ratcheting up of the complexity in the lead up to Prime Day. And this year is no different in that it used to be like, oh, I have my FBA cutoff day. Okay, I send an inventory by now. Now you have like 3 different inventory programs that you have to consider splitting between. And
be mindful how you're sending it in.
Yeah, and then particularly on the organic side, it's not media where you can, make adjustments day. It's like your listings have to have been good months ahead.
It's good that you remember those good times.
Yeah. we can all reminisce. This is where the grizzled comes into play. Well, the other big thing, speaking of ratcheting up complexity, that we, of course, is on our radar for anybody that's even tangential to the industry, is the fact that Prime Day is now moved to 4 days rather than the 2 that it's been in the past. I think this follows the larger trend that we've seen with tentpole events where they continue to become elongated on Amazon. So I'm curious from the both of you, what do you see as the factors that play into this shift? It's not maybe a surprise, but it is, I think, maybe a shock. It's like you see this coming, and yet it doesn't. Nobody's fully prepared for 4 days of Prime Day, perhaps. So yeah, what do you expect for the initial impact on this, both for brands and we're all shoppers? So I'm curious to get that perspective as well.
Of course, I think we're all curious. It's so hard to predict if customers are going to have that sense of urgency and by day one, or if they're going to wait until the very end to see all the deals that Amazon's presenting. But I think the timing is really great. And we have 2 recent promotional events that make me think that brands who are going to participate in the badge deals are going to see a lift for the whole 4-day span versus just 2 days worth of big Prime Day sales spread across. So the big spring sale that happened at the end of March, we have that data, of course, already. And we saw strong year over year and month over month lifts for each day of that 7-day event. And then same with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, even though we've had those fun podcasts going from T5 to T12 to T30, we're seeing strong lifts for every day that brands are participating in that badging. So that is a keyword there. But the badged ASINs are seeing that really strong year over year lift and trailing 30-day average lift. So I think we're going to see 4 really strong days for any badged participation.
Yeah, I definitely second that. So just to note that last year Amazon acquired 14.2 billion during Prime Day and had 11% lift. I think that means that Prime Day is definitely becoming a major sales event, just like Black Friday. So I remember in 2023, this day 2 of Prime Day actually saw a downward trend. Yet for 2024, day 2 was even higher than day 1. As of that, I think that we are definitely going to see a steady flow of traffic during all 4 days of the event.
Yeah, I guess there's a reality here of there's got to be some consumer training of now that I'm seeing these deal periods longer and longer, maybe I'm not that frantic, I need to buy this now is in place, but I'm starting to realize oh yeah, I can see this thing on whatever Tuesday and it's in the back of my mind. And then by the time Wednesday night or Thursday night rolls around or whatever the actual days for this are, I'll still have that purchase. So on aggregate, there's more purchase behavior, even if it means more time that it burdens the brains of our shoppers
Yeah.
and our brands.
Also to note, Amazon, we have 2 additional dates to promote Prime Day.
Sure.
So they will pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
I wonder what little ditty they're going to have this year. For promoting. As we talk about it, I can now hear the one from last year with Megan Thee Stallion, I think.
So do a whole rock opera to span the 4 days?
I'll sing us out of this episode with last year's.
Please wrap us out.
I promise I won't. So, easy segue into merchandising fees from that note that I just shared there. One of the big changes that we saw last month was that Amazon really made some significant changes to merchandising fees. And a lot of those changes, they were very specific. They do not apply to deals specific to peak events. So that includes Prime Day. We know Amazon loves to update fees. Do you think that we'll see any impact or changes to merchandising fees that are specific to Prime Day promotions in the weeks or couple months ahead of us?
So in fact, there are no specific fee changes for the PEDs or best aligned deals. PEDs or prime exclusive discount fee has doubled from $50 to $100, which is actually understandable since we're going from 2 to 4 days. Yet the cost for best and lightning deals remain unchanged at $1,500. One key thing to note, so if the sellers don't actually check the is this a Prime Day discount box when creating a PED, or if they fail to submit the best or lightning deals for the event, they won't receive the Prime Day deal badge. So looking at past tentpole events, sellers who use PEDs for Prime Day and get the badge typically see a 5.5x increase in sales uplift, while coupons without the badge only bring about 1.65 increased lift. So there is the tick of a change. The significant change in merchandising fees are coming for coupons, since out of June 2nd, coupons will cost $5 per coupon plus 2.5 of the revenue that the coupon generates. So this actually raises an important question with Prime Day deals potentially reaching new heights. Do we really want to give 2.5% of those sales to Amazon?
Yeah.
So my advice is always to do the math. If the PED discounts feel too high, calculate the 2.5% based on previous tentpole events and then reevaluate. Maybe it's possible that offering a slightly higher discount with PEDs might be a better option than paying the hefty 2.5 fee.
I remember when these merchandising updates and fees first came out, and it was like, that was my take as well, as it's like the increased onus on the brand to really understand the margin and how these fees impact it. Petra, I know you've been working on like an actual break-even calculator where you can select the promo type and it'll make some assumptions based on baseline traffic and stuff. But man, does that seem like something that brands need to have in their pocket for these sorts of deal updates? Yeah.
We're trying to make it simple by promotional type. So we're trying to calculate based on the previous sales uplift and the current progress of the brand, how much those fee will be. And based of that, we are able to calculate, should we go with coupons, PEDs, are we able to do the best deals, etc. So just make it simple and do the math.
Outside of just like the massive changes that we touched on, which are, event duration, how much I actually have to pay to participate in the event, those minor details, several, I would say, larger systemic things that we've seen develop on Amazon this year that will play a role in tentpole events and Prime Day, really, where we'll see them come to bear, presumably. One thing that I'm thinking about here is, of course, like the increasing impact that we're seeing of AI-driven search on the shopper journey throughout Amazon's ecosystem. So Petra, again, I know you've spent a lot of time. We spoke with you recently on this, I think maybe two episodes ago, not that long ago, about the sort of all the ways that we're seeing AI touch the shopper journey. So I'm just curious, like, is there another layer when we think about Prime Day of like how brands should be anticipating that through the lens of, shopping during Prime Day this year may look a bit different than shopping in years past for Prime Day?
So it could be, there is no guarantee, but this is the first day where our buddy Rufus could really take a big part of it.
Yeah.
As we talked in the previous podcast, Rufus is Amazon AI shopping assistant that's designed to help customers by suggesting the products to best meet their needs based on the questions that the customer asked. So in October 2024, Rufus search accounted for 40% of total Amazon searches. This percentage is rapidly increasing in 2025, and Amazon progresses that it will reach up to 35% by the end of 2025. So definitely will take some additional placements for Prime Day shopping. For sellers, if not already, they need to start optimizing their copy to include the customer intents. Focus on using phrases that fulfill the actual need of the customer. Adjust their imagery by adding the text that the Rufus can read and recommend to the customers. So I don't actually know how much this will impact the search during tentpole events, but what's obvious is that people are using Rufus more and more.
Well, and it's all about that preparation in the lead up.
Yeah.
Everything that we've talked about, I mean, for years, really, but on this podcast, at least for the past couple of years too, is that Prime Day can be won or lost based on when you start prepping. And the time to prep is not necessarily end of June. We're talking about starting now. And so there's the optimization work that you've talked about, Predrag. What are some of the other things that brands can be thinking about? And I think you started to touch on this a bit, Joanna, in the first question that we discussed. Let's go a little bit deeper on what are some of the things that brands can be thinking about to help them get ready from an organic perspective, helping them, get the BSR moving so that they can fully capitalize on it in July. It takes time for all of that to hit and have impact. What are some things they can be doing in this lead up?
Yeah, entirely. And it really depends what your goal is. So we all know before these big tentpole events bring in a lot of additional traffic, everyone's checking their titles, their imagery, bullet points, and you're refreshing and adding new keywords that might have
companies coming, getting the house ready.
Precisely. But yes, I mean we all know the check boxes that Amazon has and the newness with AI that comes in. And so if you're doing the basics, yes, you will still see this increase. There is still going to be additional traffic. And if you have that badging, you're still going to have that additional visibility and those lifts year over year and month over month. But what we're seeing just more and more is brands are just becoming so strategic and really putting all their eggs in these tentpole events, and they're getting really competitive. So we all know from an ads perspective, it costs a lot more. You know that you're going to invest more because you're competing. You don't want to get conquested from brands paying more for an ASIN or product category. So if your goal is to just see that, lift that expected lift year over year, yes, recrawl your content and make sure your infographics are there. Make sure that we now know that customers are reading and looking at the image gallery and they're kind of skipping over the bullet points, which used to be something several years ago that was so vital. But now we have to have our bullet points in our imagery, and infographics are just so incredibly important. But really, I mean, if your goal is to just grow and be as competitive as possible and decrease that BSR, we're seeing more and more you have to really pay to invest there. And so that is campaigns that are going to bring additional traffic, influencers, user-generated content is really resonating with customers. So having that media of a customer actually using your product, talking about it, sharing it with their platform, driving traffic to Amazon, that's really getting incredible engagement. And so investments like that, for example, we have a lot of success with product win campaigns where you're increasing that velocity, and that's what's really driving that BSR to a low ranking before the event. So mid-campaign, you're going to be as low as you can be, and that's going to help you in all other aspects. Hopefully advertising will be less expensive, but more importantly, you'll be showing up in search and browse on page one, higher up on page one, and your relevancy will be the peak it can be. So your deals and the badging that you're investing in is going to perform the very best that it can. Not only that, of course, you're getting additional reviews in general. So you're setting yourself up for the rest of the year for 2025, really leaning in hard on this big tentpole event that we know gets so much traffic that will carry you through the rest of the year by that, keep that ranking and stop that big ebb and flow and make it more consistent and have your, slowly up and to the right, or not slowly, but up and to the right versus that huge peak in Prime Day and then a big drop and then a huge peak in October, big deal days and then a big drop. So we want to maintain that as much as possible and keep that ranking as low as we can for as long as we can.
I think one thing we talk a lot on the media side is like, as things get more competitive as CPCs increase, particularly for those sort of like key media placements. Unless you're a sort of P&G and you have that budget, the ability to like win all things all the time is really no longer a feasible outcome for brands. And so that's where, being really refined on your targeting strategies, using AMC, all those sorts of things that we talk about to like narrow in on the places where you can win at the times that you want to win. And I feel like, Joanna, what you're speaking to really echoes that of like, okay, understand who is the addressable consumer and how do I incorporate them into my content with UGC? And like, what are the 5 key terms that I really want to rank for organically in the lead up for that? Okay, how do I use sort of targeted influencer buys or keyword updates and stuff to aggressively target that? But is that a fair reflection of like, now is the time to kind of reset where's the playing field that I can win and how do I align my organic strategy to that?
Yeah, entirely. Way more concisely spoken than me.
That's good. I try to bring a little bit of the media side over here.
I saw you going media, Jordan.
Yeah,
like, wait a minute.
Hint of what's to come.
That's not this episode.
But all of that is great for the lead and stuff, but there's still, like, I feel that when you get to the event, there's the risk aversion where it's like, how do I not screw up all the things that I did over the last 3 months to actually make sales? Predrag, I know this is where a lot of your focus has been spent recently of like the sort of monitoring and automations that we can put in place to ensure that we are capitalizing on that traffic and not shooting ourselves in the foot for those now 4 days that we have to monitor this. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the low hanging things that need to be in place to ensure brands capitalize on that effectively?
Of course. So just want to make something clear before I start. So during my 3 years inside of the Amazon world, Prime Day was never a peaceful time.
Yeah.
There is always new account health flags, listing suspensions, unauthorized sellers, buy box being lost. Last year, there was even a reporting of the actual brand for the trademark infringement, which we had to deal 3 weeks after Prime Day. So as always, the plan is to have everything ready prior to Prime Day. So as initial step, we always verify that the promotional efforts are set with 0 errors. We now use our internal tools to set up something called competitor tracking, where we basically add 20 to 30 best-selling products and brands across the category. And this allows us to monitor their performance during tentpole events. We can basically see some price changes, buy box being lost, etc. So with that competitor tracking, we easily find sellers who are not promoting their products or not having the badge and target them with advertising, which then results basically stealing sales from their branded keywords. This is something that had great success during this big spring sale that we had last month. So one more additional thing that we do, we set up alerts in different internal tools. So we get notified every time there is a change in price or buy box within our PDPs and our products. During the actual Prime Day dates, it's important to have patience and clarity, definitely. So we need to be prepared to switch promotional times if our PEDs get flagged, so you don't lose any time being promotional. If our listings get flagged during that time period, the good thing to have in mind is that Amazon support is always overwhelmed by calls and emails. So definitely a good plan is to instantly switch strategies and spend to a different day scene while working on the listing being reinstated. So during that 4 days time, there is not much that you can do, but just ride the wave.
I appreciate the public service announcement, and I feel like perhaps we should have started this episode with that. Let me be clear. There's no such thing as peaceful Prime Day. And so all the preparation account side that you can do in the lead up, also do it mentally.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you're in a healthy space to deal with the speed bumps and the hiccups that inevitably will happen. It's just a part of it.
Exactly.
So very, very responsible call out there. I appreciate you bringing that up. And kind of on that same note of, the feeling or the mental view of things. So moving a little bit away from like the nuts and bolts of the tactical, operational, organic perspective of prep for Prime Day, let's look at mindset. I don't know if you're aware, but there's been a lot happening globally when it comes to economic pressures and challenges of late. This little tariff situation of them the will they, won't they kind of of it all of tariffs, of them being applied and then pulled back and then on pause and not. And I know that there's an obvious wear and tear that it can take on brands as they're trying to plan for how they're going to run their businesses. And as we consider one of the biggest discount promotional periods of the year right upon us, how are you hearing brands consider and think about what Prime Day might look like for them this year? Is there an appetite for discounting? What are the conversations that you're hearing in the midst of kind of the turmoil that everyone's navigating?
So when I hear tariffs, I always think of price increases, which is actually what I'm seeing across multiple brands. As you know, Amazon is never a fan of those and will push the high price increase with a loss of buy box. That's just the reality, and it will happen. Also, for promotions like PEDs or best lighting deals, the minimum discount that the brand has to offer is being calculated based on the reference price in the last 30 days. That reference price is not the price you set, but the price that was the lowest price point in the last 30 days. So if the tariffs hit, there will be definitely additional planning for Prime Day. Sellers need to be more careful, as you will not be able to raise the pricing and discount that raised price for those promotional periods.
So just challenge upon challenge.
The challenge is to be strategical. So those price increase, if the tariffs go up, they will happen. We just need to be more careful on when to raise the price and how we are going to raise those.
So strategic, precision in your approach, giving yourself a little space mentally to prepare for it all.
Exactly.
On top of starting your organic prep now, making sure you're operationally sound, and knowing that the only constant with Amazon is in fact change. If you keep all of this in mind and are juggling all those balls and spinning all those plates, Prime Day will be a success, right?
Yes, couldn't agree more.
Thank you both for joining us. I think you did share a lot of helpful nuggets for brands to consider as they start preparing now. That is also another thing that's super clear. We need to start the preparation now and not hold off on getting ready for the big Prime 4 days this year. So thank you both for joining us. It was great talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a great conversation.